everyone, and welcome back to our design system / component library series. Today we're going to look at creating an avatar component to add to our library. Don't worry if you haven't been following along, there is an exercise file in the description below which has everything you need. Let's jump in. As usual, you've got your little spec table in the file that shows you exactly what we're going to make step by step. But unlike usual, I just want to show you the final product because this is one of those components where there's an infinite ways of making it and different approaches. So I'll show you what it is, and if you choose to take a different approach, go ahead. So the final product is going to be this kind of avatar component where you have two different layouts for it. You've got the horizontal and the vertical layout. You can choose 3 different kinds of the actual image itself. It could be an image, an icon, or it can just be initials. And you're also going to have the name underneath, an optional subtitle. You're going to have the little notification at the top with numbers potentially inside of it, and then at the bottom a little status thing. So the way I'm going to build it, and you can see this reflected in the table as well, is I want to create my avatars, so the 3 different kinds of avatars, and also the 4 different kinds of statuses separately as separate components. So do like an atom approach, do those, and then put them into my big component. I want to do that because it means that I can scale up a bit better if I add things in the future, but you can also just make these, multiple times. So you can have one component that has 3 different kinds of these, and then 4 different kinds of statuses in each of these kinds, and then again for the other layout. Without further ado, let's start with my approach. So I'm going to start by creating a frame. I'm going to click on F, just tapping in, which gives us an 100 by 100 pixel frame. I'll create some tokens later to control the sizing and the radius, so I don't care about that for now. But this one is going to be the one that has the initials in it. So I'll click on T, tap in, and let's just write AA because that's good for us. I'll take care of the typography in a bit. So that's option 1. Option 2, I'll just duplicate this frame, holding down Option and Shift, and then just dragging out. This one will be the one with the image, so I can just delete the text. And then let's choose a image background. For this, you just click on your fill over here and then go to image, and then you click on choose image, and that will open just a normal kind of image selector for you where you can choose an image from your computer. So I've selected this image. I have kind of all my emojis saved on my computer. It comes in handy a lot more than you think it will, so I recommend doing this. Let's go on to our third, which is the icon. So I'll just duplicate this one again, Option and Shift. Then to get an icon, I do have some in my component library, but I want to show you one of my favorite plugins which allows you to get one straight away. To get a plugin, you tap between the hand and the text tool in the tab bar, click on plugins, and then just search for the plugin you want. I want to use Iconify. Then I get this kind of dialog box open up here, and then I can search for, let's say, user, and then just select whichever one works best for my designs. Once you select the one that you want, I think I want this one, then select your frame and then import icon. So it will just import that icon directly into your frame. I'll close this, and again, I'm not really worrying about the size for now because I'm going to have tokens that control all of this later. Let's just set up the colors. So I don't think I want white as my background. I'm probably going to use my brand colors if you have from your design system. I have loads of styles and variables set up, so I'm just going to choose from them. I think I'm going to go maybe with a lighter surface color, which is kind of a lighter version of my brand color. And then for my text, I'll go with my negative text, which is kind of a text on a darker background. Really useful to have these in your design systems or just in general saved in your file. Then for the icon, I think usually I will use the icon when the user isn't actually signed in. That's when you'd use this avatar. So I think I'll go with probably a subtle kind of grayscale color. So I want to set up the tokens for them. I'm going to set up a few variables really quickly to just handle these. So here is my little tokens table that's going to tell us which tokens we're going to make. I'll go into local variables. I already have lots of different collections set up, but you can just set up a new one. I'm going to put this inside of component tokens, and then let's start. So I'll create a new variable. It's a number variable, and I'll call it avatar / to create the group avatar, and then radius. And I'll just go into avatar here, so I'm in this group. The way I have my design system set up is in my primitive collection. I just have a scale going from 2 to 40 in kind of similar jumps, and then I have 1999, which always kind of gives me a circle. And then I also have a sizing tokens collection, which I only have radius in for now. In the future, I might want to add some spacing here, for example, if I have spacing that is the same across my app or my website. And then I've just narrowed down what kind of radiuses I can use. I don't want to have to choose from the entire scale every time. So I've just narrowed it down to a few. So what I'm going to do in my avatar token, I'm going to call an alias, which means I'm calling a different variable. So in here, instead of typing in a value, I'm just going to click here and call out to a radius that I have that's called full. So I'll look for sizing tokens radius full. If you don't have this set up, just type in 999. The next one I have is size. So I'll create a new variable and I'll call it size. Then for this, I'm going with 55, which is a number I don't have. So I just need to type it in. Then for my padding, I'm going with 16. So let's put in a number and say padding, and that will be 16. So I look for 16 in my primitives. Wonderful. Now the reason I would like using primitives is just because right now I'm using a scale of 2, but if in the future it needs to shrink or it needs to grow, I can change it in the primitives, and then all of the variables or tokens that use these primitives will change automatically, so I don't need to go back and change it one by one. Before I finish, I want to scope these variables. People tend to skip this step, and it's actually so useful, especially when your design system becomes really big. So I'm going to click on radius over here, and then in the edit, I can scope this variable, and that just means that I'm selecting where I can see this. I don't want to see this in width and height. I don't want to see this in the auto layout. I don't want to see this as text content. I can only use this variable to set a radius. Let's do the same for this one. So I can only use this for width and height. And then this one, I can only use it for padding. Padding is gap. So anything that has to do with an auto layout is called gap. Saying that, I should probably make these into an auto layout. So I'll select the avatar that has initials in it, and I'll just add an auto layout to it, Shift and A. Same thing with the one with the icon. I'll select the frame, Shift A. It looks a bit out of whack right now, but that's fine. So I'm gonna start applying the variables now. I'll select all of these avatars, go into the radius section, and then click on my variable button, search for avatar. I can just apply it. Lovely. Now I want to select both of these and do the paddings first before I do the size. So I'll go in here, and then in my padding right now, because it's a bit of a mix, you see I have full control over all the size of the padding, but I don't need that. So I'll untick this one. I'll click on my variable button, search for avatar, and then I've got my avatar padding in my horizontal and avatar again in my vertical. Already looking better, isn't it? I'm also going to align the items in both of the auto layouts to the center. Now I need to put the sizing on them. So I'll select all of my avatars, and then in the width and the height, it will be just inside of the drop down. Click on apply variable, avatar size, and height, apply variable, avatar size. Good. So you see how things have kind of moved around. Now I just need to go in and tweak it a little bit. So let's start with the text. This one, obviously 40 is way too big. I do have some text styles already set up in my design system. I will probably go with maybe a headline, not bold. Don't want it to be bold. Yeah, headline regular looks good. So my headlines are 20 pixels. So anything around 20 pixels should probably be good. Yep. Now for my icon. So because I know I have a fixed size auto layout, and I also have 16 padding, what I think I can do is I can actually let the icon kind of size itself. Instead of it being fixed and fixed, I could just tell it to fill a container, and it will take up as much space as it can. Yeah, I think that's a good solution. Now I want to set these up in a component set. I will select all three of them at the same time, go up here into the component tool, click on the drop down, and create component set. So create component will create one component that has all three of them in it. So the component will just be 3 avatars. Create multiple components will make each of them into its own individual component. Component set gives us a component with multiple variants. So if I do that, I've got my lovely component 6. I'm going to change that to avatar face. And then I need to set up the variation. So I'm going to change, first of all, the actual property, because property 1 doesn't mean anything, does it? So I'll double click over here, and I'll just call it type. Now let's go one by one and change the value. So what kind of type is this? This is initials. You can call it letters or anything like that. Then the image one, I'm going to call it image. And the third one, I'm probably going to call it icon. And now if I go into my assets panel, I can see this component avatar face. We have some really brand new features from Figma that literally launched last week. We have a lot more info inside of the assets panel. So now I can see that there's 3 variants. And if I click over here, I can see a little pop-up of what this component has. So I can change different variations from here. I don't have to actually pull it in. So I'm gonna insert an instance of this here at the top just so you can see it. So again, I can change between the different ones with a little drop down. So I've now created my first atom for my avatar component. I need to create my second atom now, which is the little status indicator at the bottom. Before my status indicator, I want to have 4 statuses. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on F to create a little frame, and I'll drop it in. The reason I use frames and not shapes is because frames could hold things inside of them, and you'll see in a minute how even some of my statuses will need to have something inside. So it's always better to use a frame just to protect yourself. I'm not going to use variables for this one. I will for the radius, but not for anything else. So I think the size of it, I'll just constrain the proportions to keep it a square. So I think I probably want them to be 12 by 12. Yeah, that feels about right. So I'm going to create a little frame, 12 by 12. I'm going to need these to be a circle. So to do that, I'm just going to put in my full radius, you know, the one I showed you that's just in my sizing tokens. So it's not connected to any specific component. It's just a radius token that I have, and it will create a circle. I'm gonna give this a background color, and I want my first status to be the online status. So in my design system, like I kind of mentioned before, the way I have my colors set up, I have some semantic colors. If you're using a fancy design system with variables or just a classic design system with styles, I really recommend you have some semantic colors in there. Semantic colors are colors that have a meaning. So my primary color, my brand color, is just some sort of purple because I love purple, can you tell? But error states, warning states, success states, those usually come in the same colors that a user is going to expect in their mental models. Of course, these might mean different things in different cultures and in different industries. So it's great to have them in whatever way matches your brand and whoever you are catering for. So the way I have it set up is I have all of these colors over here, and they have different modes. Modes are only available on the professional plan. There is a link to sign up to that in my description if you want to try it out. So you've got primary, error, warning, and success in different modes. So if I choose one of them, I essentially am choosing all of them. I just need to choose which mode is appearing at that moment. So what I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to select my semantic color, my default one, and then I'll just change the mode. To change the mode, you go into the layer section of the design panel. So instead of my semantic color primary, I'm going to choose success. The success state is going to show that they're online. Let's show one where they're away maybe. So for that, I think I'll use warning. Then I want one that shows that they're busy. So I'm going to use a red for that, which is my error state. And I probably need one more, which is like just kind of disabled or off. And for that, I'll just use a disabled color. I'm not going to use my semantic colors for this. I'll just use a disabled color. I feel like this needs one more thing. I don't love that they're just kind of a circle. I feel like they need a bit of a border around them. So I'll select all of them at the same time. So I'm going to add a stroke. Then I'm just going to make it white. New trick alert. Did you guys know that you can type the name of a color into here? So I can just write white and it will make it white. I'm debating whether I want the stroke to be inside or outside. I think I want it to be outside because 12 is quite small, and if there's already a stroke on there, it will just crowd inside of it, which means my circle color is only 11 pixels. So I'm gonna put my stroke on the outside. It makes a circle feel a bit bigger. It's technically 13 pixels, even though it's only going to take up 12 pixels of space. Now, one more thing I need to do, and this is really important. Whenever we're building any product that goes anywhere in the end, or even if we're just making a fake thing, we should be practicing good accessibility techniques. One of the really important accessibility guidelines is that you should never signify something just by color. You should always try and signify with something else, because people that are using our product might have visual impairments of various sorts. That means that color differentiation is a bit hard. So we always want to provide some other clue that something has changed. So in this case, I want to add some little vectors inside of it. I'm going to use just lines for this. So for, let's say this one, which is busy, I'm just going to draw a little line. So I click on L for line. And then I'll just draw inside of here, and you see that's why I used a frame, because it can contain something inside of it. I'll make this white again, just tap F, that also brings up white. I might round the corners, yeah, great. And then let's make this maybe like 6 pixels, and then I'll just center it. Great, lovely. I'll copy this one over into my away, and I'll just make it half of the size, so I'll make it 3 pixels wide. Move it so it touches the center. Then I'll duplicate it, rotate it. I'll hold down shift while I'm rotating to rotate in 50-degree angles. Just move this to here. So you see that they're intersecting. Then if I select both of them at the same time, I can use the shape building tool, just tap on it and it will union it and make it into a single shape. Instead of two lines, it's just one shape. What should we do for our last one, which is just offline? Maybe we'll put like just a crossed line, something like that. So I'll just duplicate this one again, option and shift, and just drag it into this frame. And then I'll give it like a 45-degree angle, holding down shift again. Maybe actually, I'm gonna duplicate this one, so Command D. So I've got two on top of each other. Then I'll select the top one, hold down shift, and then I will rotate it down to minus 45-degree angle. That looks good, right? It even adds a bit of character, okay? So I'll select both of these lines again and just union them so they are just a single vector. I'll make sure they are centered. Now we have color differentiation, but also a visual representation with some sort of iconography. So I will select all of them and make them into a component set now. At the top in my component button, create component set, just like before. I'll change the name to status. Then my property can also be status. My first one will be online. Then we've got away, busy, and offline. So I've created my first two atoms that are going to go into my main component. Let's build up our main component now, and this bit's going to just go by really quickly. So I'll go into my assets panel and I'll just drag out my avatar face and my status because I'm going to need to use them. So let's build our first layout. I will have my avatar over here, then I will have my status on top of it, just here. We'll assemble these in a second. Then I want to have that little notification at the top. So let's create that. I'll click on T, tap in, just put a 0, 0. I'll put this inside of an auto layout, so Shift A. Let's give it a fill color. So I'm probably going to use just my darker, I'm going to use my darker brand color. And for the text on top of it, I want to use a negative text color. So not a usual kind of dark, but a lighter one that sits on top of a darker background. Then obviously I probably should give this a full radius because I want it to be sort of a pill shape. So now let's change the text style. So it needs to be small. I'll probably go, let's see what I have. I have a 13. Is that small enough? Maybe I need to go smaller, maybe an 11. Yeah, I think 11's good. For the padding, I think I'm actually gonna go with 0 padding horizontally because my textiles have quite a nice line height on them, so I trust that enough. And I'll use 8 padding on the vertical. Great. So I'll just call this notification. Lovely, and that will be here. Then I will have some text. So let's drop that in, click on T, drop in, and then she has a name, so I will call her Anna Aloha. And this will be the place where you can see the name of the person. I'm going to change this to regular body. Then I'll duplicate this, so holding down Option and Shift, I'll just duplicate it and just write maybe online or something like that because we're going to have an optional kind of caption underneath. I'll change this to be something a bit smaller. Maybe a subtitle. Yeah, that works. I'll change the colors as well because it's nice to have different colors for your text hierarchy. So this one will be a subtitle and this one is just going to use my body color. So you can see they just have a bit of differentiation between them. Great. I'll put these two in an auto layout as well. So selecting both of them, Shift and A, and just make sure that everything's zeroed out here because we don't need any spacing. So we've kind of placed all of our items next to each other, and I really recommend doing this when you're building a complex component because you want to see how it looks and then you can plan where your auto layers are going to sit, who's going to be in an auto layer with who, and all of that. So for all of these, I think I'm actually going to put them into a frame. So I will select my avatar face, just the component over here. I'll right click and frame the selection. So I've now put my avatar face into a frame. I'll call this frame avatar elements. And then I'm going to place these two inside as well. So I'll place success inside of it and my notification inside of it. Now I'm going to add a stroke to this avatar elements frame just so you can see what's happening. I want my success circle to just be at the bottom right. So I'll align it to the bottom and then I'll align it to the right. Then I'm going to do the same with my notification. I'll align it to the top and to the right. I'll remove the stroke, Lovely. Then I've got the text auto layout next to it. I'll put both of these inside of an auto layout. So Shift and A. And then let's make the spacing between them probably 16. One last thing I want to do, I actually want to make this smaller. So instead of caption, I think I'm going to make it footnote. Yeah, it's a bit smaller. And the padding on the sides, I'm going to make 6. Yes. I want to just check how this resizes. If I have 1 digit, looks like that, then it keeps growing to the left. Now the way to change that is using constraints. Right now, this whole auto layout, the notification auto layout, is constrained to the right and to the top. If I change it to be constrained to the left, watch what happens. If I click inside and make it grow, it will grow to the other side. Yeah. So it's not about the text alignment. It's not about anything like that. It's just constraints. And this is personal preference. I think I want it to grow to the left, actually. I think that makes more sense to me, that it kind of grows over there rather than on top of the avatar. So I'm going to do that. So now that we have this layout, if you remember from our specs, we decided we're going to have 2 kinds of layouts, right? We're going to have a horizontal and a vertical. So this one is our horizontal one. So if I just duplicate this one, holding down Option and Shift, drag it out, I can then just change the layout to a vertical one and make sure that it's centered. Maybe I'll center this one as well. Done. Yeah. So that's it. I told you this bit is going to be so much faster. Now we just need to create this into a component set. So I'll select both of these together, go on top here and create component set. And now we just go step by step with our little table. So the first thing, I'm going to call this avatar. Then I need to create a variant of the layout. So property 1, I'll just change it to layout. Layout number 1 is going to be horizontal and the other one will be vertical. Now I need the ability to choose a different face, right? So this is not an instance swap. If it were different components, then it would be an instance swap. But because they were one component with different variations, all I need to do is expose those nested layers. So if I select my avatar component set, go into plus over here, you have exposed properties from nested instances. That means it just looks at all the instances it has inside of it. Right now it has an instance of avatar face and an instance of status, and just brings to the top any component properties or anything like that that they might have. I'll select that and I'll just tick both of these and pull out one of these avatar instances. You can see that I've got the layout one, which is its own personal property. Then I've got the avatar face ones and I've got the status ones. So I can just change to icon or image. I can change to busy. Yeah? Cool, right? Keep this here so we can see everything happening. Next one, I want to be able to toggle the name on and off. So for that, we'll use a Boolean component property. Holding down Command and Shift, I will select both of the names. Then in my design panel next to layers, I'll click on the create Boolean property and I'll call this name. I want it to be true, kind of as a default. Now, if I select my instance, you can see this in action. I can toggle the name on and off. Great. Now with the name, I also want a text component property so I can change the name from the design panel without having to click into the instance. So over here in the design panel, in the same place where I would select the style, I have the component properties button, click on it. You can't have 2 component properties with the same name. So for this one, I'm just gonna click on Control, Command and Space and add a little pencil emoji and then call it name. Now, if I click on my instance, you will see that I can say and change the name from here. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the subtitle. Great, so now I can change the subtitle from here as well. I can turn it off and on, and just so you know, this will carry through if you change the variant. So if I turn the subtitle off and then change from horizontal to vertical, I still won't have a subtitle. So it carries through. Next, I want to create a Boolean component property for our notification to turn it on and off. So we already know how to do this. I'll select my notification box on both of the layouts, go into my design panel and next to layer, create property, call this notification. There we go. And then I'll just click on enter and that will select the text inside of those notifications. Then I can just create the text component property for them as well. So now from here, I can control the notification as well. And I can also change the number. So 999, she's got lots of notifications. Now the last one I need to do is a Boolean for my status. So I will select my status. Now this is a cool little feature. You see this little target icon? If I want to select matching layers, I can click on it and it will just select everything. It's really cool. So I could have done this earlier on my notification as well. If I clicked on my notification and just tap that, it will select all of them inside of the component. It's really great for when you're building complex components. So I'll select my status, click on my little target, and then in the design panel, I just want to add a Boolean. So I'll create this one, status. Great. So I can now control everything, and it's so versatile. I can turn this off, turn this off, turn this off, turn this off, and I just have the face. Yeah, I can do whatever I want, whatever needs to be done. There's just so many possibilities. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks if you've been following along in this design system series. I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know how you're getting on. Leave a comment below. Tell me what other videos you want to see. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell button to be notified when the next video comes along. See you at the next one.